nor navio. I don't think I'll ever get used to being transported around again. I'd much rather be the one doing the piloting, Wyatt thought to himself as he stepped out of the shuttle's bay and into the ship's hangar. After seeing his family again after what felt like forever, and being able to hold a long conversation with them, he felt more at ease. Perhaps he was simply imagining things, but that peace was real to him, and that's all that mattered in the end. Despite the new, unexpected troubles and all the nonsense, in his humble opinion, that noble society was so adamant in lumping on his back like so much timber and logs of wood, he was content with being able to actually give his parents and brothers a better lot in life. He didn't like the idea of them being beneath him, but he could live with that outward appearance for their sake and safety. I just hope I made the right decision, he muttered to himself as he slowly walked away. There was no regret in his voice, and his decision had been made in that moment without doubt. Right or wrong, he concluded, he'd deal with whatever happened. He only made it a few meters before a vaguely familiar woman approached him with 3 aides following close behind. It took him a second to recognize the head officer of the logistical division, Lieutenant Commodore Sabraska Kaspars. In that moment, he recalled Galt's words and turned to her, politely bowing his head. Not too steep, not too fast, for not too long, just like Commander Redford had instructed him. "Head officer!" Returning his greeting in kind, but in a far more delicate and natural way, the purple-shaded-haired woman smiled at him in a friendly manner. "Lieutenant Commodore," she called, ending her greeting. "It is my sincerest hope that your day is going well." "It is," Wyatt replied, taking note that the usual empty pleasantries of other blue bloods were absent, replaced by something that could almost pass as genuine cordiality. "Have your duties brought you here?" he asked tentatively. "Partially, yes. But more so than that, it is a request that brought me here. One I couldn't refute regardless of any non-existent desire to rebuke it originating from me," Sabraska firmly stated. "I am to relay a message from Lady Cynthia Winfield." "From Lady Winfield?" Wyatt asked, puzzled, barely able to stop himself from just using her name casually. Something wasn't adding up. Why bother to send him a spoken message when she could have told him directly through the network? And why use a head officer to deliver it of all people? Still, he nodded once, pretending to understand. "What is her message?" "Lieutenant Commodore Wyatt Staples, meet me on deck H4. I'll be waiting." "Nothing follows, sir," Sabraska reported diligently. Confused, but unwilling to showcase it, Wyatt nodded again. "I see. I'll head there immediately. My thanks, Head Officer Kaspars." He paused for a moment, watching as her features shifted to a pleasant, wide, friendly smile. A second later, he continued. "Before I go, I wish to personally thank you for your help. Lieutenant Galt Tirome informed me of your efforts in directly supporting my requests, both personal and to my barony, with due diligence. Your actions directly made things easier for everyone across Newtown and the Screaming Forest. I hope such actions didn't come at personal cost?" Sabraska giggled dismissively. "Your words of praise are most welcome, my Lord Baron, but I assure you, the rest of my duties weren't affected. It was all but trivial work. I merely made such tasks my foremost priority right beneath anything requiring my immediate attention." She paused for a moment and took a step back as she placed a hand on her chest and slightly raised her head. "Unlike many others aboard this vessel who do not see you with kind eyes and refute your contributions and actions as mere happenstance, I believe in your convictions and deeds. Words can be easily twisted, but actions rarely so. And your actions are worthy of applause and admiration, my Lord Baron." Wyatt hummed, taking in her words, judging them to be truthful. He wasn't yet convinced that she was being sincere. Besides that, he couldn't know what her real objectives or motives could be. But he couldn't dismiss her as just another petulant blue blood. She flattered her own ego slightly, but then again she was a noble. And if that was the worst she'd do, then he could easily tolerate that. "I simply perform my duty for the sake of the Principality, Head Officer Kaspars," he replied kindly. "I welcome your praise all the same, however. And, if you will, don't call me Lord Baron or Lord. Referring to me by my rank, name, or just Sir is more than enough." Sabraska nodded once. "Understood, Lieutenant Commodore. If there's anything you may need from the logistical division, please, do not hesitate to contact me directly. My support is within your reach," she said, then saluted quickly. "Have a pleasant day, sir. I must return to my duties." "Likewise," Wyatt replied, returning the salute. He stared at the woman as she walked away, half expecting to see her saunter or do something similar, but she never did. A few seconds later, he turned around, unable to make up his mind about the woman, but, at the very least, he didn't dislike her. Setting the short-lived encounter aside, he decided to make his way to Deck H4, where Cynthia was waiting for him. He was half tempted to contact her through the network, but decided against it in the end. It took him several minutes and 2 elevator rides to reach the surprisingly desolate location. Some maintenance and automated cleaning drones were scurrying or floating about, but not a single soul except his own. Reaching the designated destination, Wyatt slowed his steps when he heard a stunningly beautiful voice, softly singing in the distance. For a moment he was mesmerized and captivated by it until he recognized the voice as Cynthia's. He'd heard her hum and mutter in sing-song patterns before, but this was new and oddly profound as he approached the red-armored woman leaning against a wall of a largely empty room. Tyrants rose, tyrants fell, so long ago that my memory fails. Yet the call never ceased to set sail for the black and drift among the stars. Wyatt came to a halt next to her, leaning against the wall as she continued to sing, undisturbed by his presence. The raven landed on an unknown land, guided not by wounds or unseen arms. We seek a life in the ocean black. Let us sail once more, to defend our home from the enemies of Aster. Cynthia finished, humming a few notes before letting out a long sigh. Wyatt raised an eyebrow. I didn't know you could sing like that. Or at all. You have a beautiful voice, Cynthia. Ha-ha, flattery won't work with me, Cynthia replied, turning to face him with a pleasant, relaxed smile. But thank you. This is the first time I've sung since before the coup started. Can't see why. Unless Clara doesn't like it? He asked pointedly. Hardly. She always praises me, no matter how many times she's heard me. There has simply been no time to enjoy such simple enjoyments in life. Brief visit to your Barony's beach notwithstanding, said the blue-haired woman. I take it that you've made your decision regarding your family? Wyatt blinked in surprise at her question. The old man informed us. Understanding washed over Wyatt, and then he nodded. I've decided to embrace them. His stare hardened as he continued. I'm not ashamed of them. Cynthia nodded approvingly. Family is important, be it by blood or by choice. Familial values and unity are cornerstones of many noble houses. Wyatt scoffed at that. Really? It doesn't seem like that's the case most of the time. Cynthia's blue eyes sparkled for a moment with merriment as a genuine laugh rumbled in her throat. A cornerstone doesn't necessarily mean that it'll be well tended. Much like the segment in a totem, if it crumbles, whatever is at the top will follow after. All nobles, to a lesser or greater extent, see the importance of such a crucial piece. Most only pay lip service and the bare minimum care to avoid collapse. For what is a noble without a house? Where does the lineage go if the bloodline is to be erased? Universally, all nobles understand that no matter how great or important they are on an individual level, it is nothing compared to the standing, power, and reputation of the house as a whole. She chuckled, crossing her arms. They may fight and bicker. They may even hate each other. Some go as far as to kill, incriminate, or disgrace themselves or their brothers, sisters, cousins, and more if it means gaining one more sliver of notoriety and power. Such are the tides that ebb and flow in the struggles of noble society. But in the end, they all want the same, the permanence of their house above all others. For as long as the house stands, their deeds, glories, victories, and honor shall live on forever. Her eyes hardened, staring at empty space. The foolish only see that aspect, the greed, envy, jealousy, and selfishness of furthering personal standing. A house must bring order, stability, and a just hand over those under them. All of its members may compete with each other, but they, ultimately, must work together to achieve greater things. Not divided, pretending to care, only to keep their totem standing. But truly united, she paused, allowing her a moment to relax. Then she offered Wyatt a caring smile. For what it is worth, I support your decision. Wyatt remained silent while his blue-haired friend talked, absorbing the information that gave him just a little more understanding and perspective regarding the convoluted hurdle that was living life as a blue blood. But while he could tell she was being sincere, there was something else there. He couldn't quite discern it. Do you think it was the right one? He asked. Cynthia shook her head. From a practical standpoint, it was the dumbest, worst decision you could have made. There are no laws, be they social, written, or unspoken, that would admonish you. But bringing unnecessary problems onto yourself for what many would define as a misguided sentimental attachment will be seen as a vulnerability that many unscrupulous and underhanded men and women, nobles and commoners alike, will seek to take advantage of at best and harm you at worst. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Personally, Clara and I would have been disappointed if you had chosen to take such a route after everything you've stood up for and demonstrated through words and actions. Disappointed in me, how? That I don't want to be like other blue bloods? Wyatt asked with a hint of humor in his voice. In personal convictions and how we perceive you, Wyatt, Clara sees in you the soul of a true knight. Not a silly romanticized illusion or a self-deluded sense of grandeur given by a piece of parchment granting you such a title, but a warrior that embodies the virtues of justice, honor, duty, loyalty, courage, mercy, generosity, temperance, and integrity, explained Cynthia. Ha! Wyatt barked out a laugh, shaking his head slowly a few times. Who is that guy and where can I meet him? Cynthia's lips curled into a cheery grin. I would very much like to meet him too. Sadly, you're the closest approximation she has to see as an example other than the old man himself. Wyatt chucked again before continuing. And you said it wasn't a romanticized illusion? She nodded slowly. Indeed. To embody those traits doesn't mean that you're defined by them. Rather, a true knight actively chooses to act upon them rather than push them aside in favor of personal glory and selfish, indulgent desires. Yet simultaneously, he isn't ruled by such virtues at every waking moment. It would be impossible to do so and beyond moronic to try, the red-armored woman hummed softly. In the most simplistic descriptor possible, you fit that mold adequately enough. Me? Hardly. I do what I must to fulfill my duty. If what you say is true, then I think you, Milcades, or the Royal Marines fit those traits more than I ever could, Wyatt countered. We're different, Wyatt. To be a Royal Marine means to sacrifice much to achieve a greater good. Cynthia paused to look at her left hand as she slowly clenched it into a fist a few times. You don't have a choice in the matter? He asked, remembering the 2 babies entrusted to Milcades. Do you have a choice to be born? To select the name your caretakers bestow upon you? Cynthia asked with a gentle chuckle. There is no resentment to be found. To be a Royal Marine and protect the Astor bloodline is the greatest honor there is in the Principality. Wyatt stared at her for several silent seconds as he tried to discern her expression, but only found honesty. I've been meaning to ask you, Cynthia. Are you a Royal Marine? The short answer is yes. However, as many things are, it is far more complicated than that. My unique and pristine genetic lineage made me the ideal candidate to not only become a Royal Marine, but to be something more. To a regular Royal Marine, I am to one as they are to a baseline human, she smiled, turning to him. I'm a living weapon, crafted since before I was an embryo inside my mother's womb. To list everything that was done to me would take numerous pages. I'm a sword and a shield, the hammer and the spear, the scythe and the arrow. She paused only to curl her left hand into a solid fist. I have never and will not know sickness. I'll see centuries past without withering or decay before my eyes. Once Clara renounces her bloodline, I shall leave her side to carry on with my duties elsewhere. A dark hum escaped her throat. I'm not looking forward to that eventuality, I confess. But you're alive. You're not just a weapon. You're Cynthia Winfield, Wyatt replied with a friendly, warm smile, surprising the blue-haired woman. I don't understand the weight of your duties, and I can't fully understand what being a living weapon means. But you're breathing and you can feel, you can laugh and sing. And I'll always be your friend for what is worth, Cynthia, he said sincerely. Cynthia broke into a laugh that lasted for several seconds until she reached out, gently grabbing Wyatt's shoulder. You've spent too much time with Milcades. That third-rate garbage philosopher with illusions of grandeur, she exclaimed, laughing a little more. I accept your sentiment, if nothing else. Wyatt narrowed his eyes slightly, looking past the almost empty laugh. You say that as if you didn't consider yourself human, Cynthia. Letting go of his shoulder, she responded. I know I'm human, Wyatt. To what degree? I don't know. I'm simply different. Many look upon me and see a creature wearing a human disguise. Others see a mask and a monster under it wishing to break free. What do you see? She asked, staring directly into his eyes. I see you not as a weapon, Wyatt replied, shrugging. You're my friend, Cynthia Winfield. That's all I care about. Cynthia continued to stare at him for several long moments until her expression softened and her lips curled into a small, warm smile. You truly mean that, don't you? I don't need Clara's ability to know that is true. Thank you, Wyatt. Be it naivety or sincerity, I welcome it all the same. Any time, Cynthia, Wyatt replied, returning her smile. A moment later, he let out a short, ah. Say, why did you order Head Officer Sabraska to give me a message in person? Cynthia's smile turned slightly playful. You can say it was a test. Wyatt raised an eyebrow. Do you think she'll try to seduce me or something? Cynthia chuckled. To Sabraska's credit, she's a step above other noblewomen in that aspect. She is far from lacking in terms of physical attractiveness and candid splendor. Instead of being blatant in her attempts at seduction, she has demonstrated to be sound of mind and, at the very least, knows that an exterior appeal is only part of her arsenal. She utilizes her wits, intelligence, skills, and position to her advantage within reason. She can make a good prospect for you to consider for marriage, Wyatt. Wyatt did a double take. But I thought you and Clara said... There's a difference between falling to the wiles of a lady and recognizing the value in those who have more to offer than ambition and a thirst for power. There are many factors to consider, and both Clara and I believe that Sabraska may prove to be a strong candidate to build a strong relationship with. House Kaspars is a relatively powerful lesser house in Gramont territory. It is a good prospect for someone in your position, rank, and underlying circumstances, Cynthia clarified simply. Then should I try to get her to be my girlfriend or something? Wyatt asked, unsure. Cynthia shrugged. You can start to court her if you so desire. She's merely an adequate prospect within your immediate reach. Not a terrible option, especially compared to others. A candidate to remember and keep in consideration. You don't have to do anything you don't want to in that regard, Wyatt. You're free to choose your wife, unless House Astor imposes one on you for political maneuvering and gains. I understand, I think, Wyatt replied tentatively. On matters of love, marriage, and everything of that sort, he was completely lost. If the prince ordered him to marry some lady of his choosing, he'd do it. Otherwise, marriage and starting a family of his own were the furthest things from his mind at the moment. That aside, is there a reason why you summoned me here? Privacy away from Clara, at her behest. After Redford's reprimand, she wished to be left alone. Milcades is guarding her room personally, answered the red-armored woman. Wyatt winced slightly and a jolt of worry coursed through his body. It wasn't my intention to cause her problems. Cynthia shook her head. Think nothing of it, Wyatt. Clara's antics rarely come back to demand retribution. Trust me when I tell you that she deserved that scolding. I love her, but she can be too much even for me to handle properly, she ended with a huff. Wyatt let out a hearty laugh. We've known each other for a few months, but I understand what you mean, Cynthia. So, you're not mad at me for shooting a dummy missile at her? He asked, hopeful. Oh, I am. But I can make you pay for your insolence during our training, Cynthia confessed with a devilish smirk. Wyatt let out a sigh as hope died within him and resignation took over. I guess I can count myself lucky only to receive that much punishment. Regardless of the consequences that followed, I appreciate what you did for her. It helped her more than you realize, Wyatt. Though now I'm afraid there's no way to keep her away from a fighter's cockpit now that she's gotten a real taste of the things she's loved since before she could properly talk, she said in a tone that suggested both humor and resignation. Happy to help, Wyatt replied, then turning to her. Hey, Cynthia. What was that song you were singing? It's an old song, written by the founder of House Winfield, Tobias the Poet Winfield. Every Winfield knows this song by heart. It reminds us of our past beyond even the principality, our duty, and why we stand tall and ever watchful, replied Cynthia with a proud smile. You may not believe in it, but there is honor in the legacy he built and glory that followed in his example and footsteps. If it is important to you, then I won't say anything about it, Wyatt replied, surprised by the weight her words carried. It was more than obvious that she meant all of it and that the history of her house mattered to her immensely. Who was he to judge her for that? Instead, he focused on another matter entirely. Slumping to the ground, uncaring that he made dirty his uniform, he asked, Could you sing it to me? The full song. I'd like to hear it if you want. Cynthia smiled. Very well, she said before clearing her throat. For the next hour, she sang to him half a dozen different songs, and they both spent time with idle talk until Clara summoned Cynthia to her side. Satisfied, they left with their spirits lifted. Nornavio, Composter's Barracks. When Wyatt reached the barracks, he found the members of his squadron with cards in their hands, sitting around a table with small piles of wooden chips stacked before them. "Hey there, boss!" Leopold was the first to greet him with his free arm to casually wave at him. The noble members of the team nearly stood up to salute, but stopped themselves at the last moment. They gave their leader a more casual salute from their sitting positions. Leopold chuckled. "Care to join?" he asked, motioning with his head at the table. Wyatt smirked. "Sure. I'm in the mood to lose a few credits. But first I need to wash myself. I also need to inform you of something, but that can wait." "Understood, sir," Gregor replied with a respectful nod. "Ah, sir, your shipment arrived safely and is awaiting you in your quarters." "My what?" Wyatt asked himself internally, but outwardly nodded in response. Moving to his quarters, little had changed from his precious private bedroom. The main differences were the two security cases presenting his soul snatchers and his armor, and the small desk with a computer terminal for more personal uses. But there on his bed, 3 neatly placed, clean, and folded uniforms rested. "Computer, who delivered these uniforms?" he asked after the door closed behind him and he began to take off his admittedly tight uniform. "They were delivered by members of the Logistical Division 36 minutes and 41 seconds ago, current timestamp. They were accepted by the Auxilia and promptly placed where they now reside," answered the AI. Wyatt stared at the uniforms for a few seconds, wondering if receiving such preferential treatment was warranted or if he should be worried. On the one hand, he was accustomed to requesting what he needed directly through a clerk or an acquisitional member of the Logistical Division. However, even those instances were rare, and it often took them days or weeks to deliver. He was a commoner, and any request from a commoner always came last in their list of priorities. On the other hand, he was fully aware that such treatment was, well, preferential even above regular nobility. The more wicked side of him laughed snidely, wondering if other blue bloods were aware of it, and hoping that they knew how he, a filthy commoner, got such attention over them. But the rest of him only saw it as an advantage despite the now clear intentions of one Sabraska Kaspars. In the end, he shrugged as he entered his bathroom. "She's not doing anything that Cynthia disapproves of, so I shouldn't be worried. And if I can get some good things out of it, why stop? Maybe I should make something for her as a thank-you gift." Concluding the deal as done and over, he proceeded to take a much-needed shower. Once he was done and dry, he put on new undergarments and the first of his new uniforms, finding it fitted him nicely, neither too loose nor too tight. The difference was evident and welcomed. Stepping outside, he casually joined his squad mates as Gregor and Nultar made space for him to join them. The ongoing hand ended quickly, and he joined them, taking a stack of wooden chips for himself and noting that Gregor had by far the largest pile. Receiving 5 cards, he cleared his throat. "In a week's time, we'll begin a new training schedule," he said before putting 2 cards down and throwing a chip. "Please, boss, whatever you do, don't put me in more leadership roles," Leopold begged as he set 3 cards down, also throwing a chip in. The automated dealer dealt Wyatt 2 cards and 3 to him a second later. "You should be honored to be considered for such a role, even in simulated training, Dakar," Gregor countered, putting down a single card. "Our cohesion has increased substantially ever since Wyatt became our leader. It's almost unnatural the way we're doing things now." "I like it," Nultar commented, putting down 3 cards. "If the results we may expect to achieve match in any form what we've surpassed so far, then I won't object," Raquel said with a knowing, approving smirk as she set 2 cards down. "So, Wyatt, what are we going to aim for? Has that Ikanti friend of yours created a simulation training scenario using that modified fighter you tested earlier?" "That was just a prototype. I don't know what else Jincho is planning to do with it, only that more tests are to come," Wyatt revealed. "No. We'll be using a new set of simulated scenarios as well as using the free space training module to test formations, tactics, strategies, and see what we can learn and adapt to our benefit." "The free space training module? The same used by the Academy?" Nultar asked as he exchanged confused looks with his companions. "Isn't that for cadets and trainees, Wyatt?" "Yes, and we'll need it," he said, throwing 2 chips into the pile. "I've been studying Maximilian's data chits and everything from his personal notes, highlights, book of tactics, and a huge collection of simulations and more. Tomorrow, I'll give you all a copy of the data so you may study it yourselves before we begin our training." A collective choking noise caught his attention as Raquel, Gregor, and Noltar simultaneously began to cough violently, their eyes fixed on him, their cards forgotten. Leopold, for his part, had also let go of his cards but was instead laughing nervously and muttering, "He's trying to kill us, ain't he?"